Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to another live stream. Alrighty, so I got chat up on my phone at long last. Hey, welcome to the first stream in a while and first bit of content I've done in a while. After this stream, I'm going to be working on a few videos, so I should be back in beeswax in terms of making content again, so there's that. That's a thing. Yeah, I don't know why we're doing this, but I got bored and decided that this is what we're going to be spending our night doing, at least for the next, hour or so. So, yeah, sit back, relax, and we're going to be ranking some Fortnite seasons. Of course, if you have any opinions on any of this, please be sure to chime in. I will be paying attention to chat as per usual. Without further ado, let's go ahead and ado, shall we? So I'm streaming Chrome of all things, but here we are on the tier list site making a tier list. This is, again, just very strange, but we're doing it. Here we go. So we're going to start off with... Actually, no, we can't even rank these yet because there's a Season 0 that isn't even on here. That's right, there's a bit of a hidden season that nobody remembers. I'm also going to go ahead and slide this into the didn't play section because I didn't touch Season 4 of Chapter 2 at all. I've watched a lot of gameplay of it, I've seen footage of it, I've read all about it, and know the lore implications that it had for the game, but I didn't actually play it. So for that reason, I don't think it's fair to judge it. So that's just going to be thrown out the way. We're not messing with it. Chapter 2, Season 4. Let me know your opinions on it, but I'm not ranking it because I didn't play it. Alright, back on track. Season 0. Bit of a hidden season, but that was when the game first released. This is when the Battle Royale segment of the game was first added, and it was very bare bones, but it was the start of Fortnite as we know it. Similar to Save the World, everything was lootable, which is very interesting. You could search piles of hay, you can search potted plants, practically everything you could search and get various things from it. Wasn't very useful though. The only things you get actual loot from were, of course, chests and ammo boxes and stuff. Everything else would just waste your time. But it was definitely a feature carried over from Save the World, because in Save the World you can loot everything for various pieces of scrap and stuff that's useful for that game mode's mechanics. And since Battle Royale is just Save the World but Battle Royale, they ported over a lot of the same features. But I'm not going to rank Season 0 for two reasons. One, it doesn't exist as a little square, so I can't physically move it. And two, I don't think it's really fair. It's the very start of the game. There's not too much to say about it. That's just where Fortnite got its bare bones start. The season I will rank, however, is Season 1, which is, I don't know how well you can actually see it, but it's represented by the Renegade Raider and I forget what skin that is, but another really OG one. Really old one. Represented right there. Season 1! For those of you who don't know, I've been playing since then. I've been playing since the bloody start of the game. And I have a lot of memories of Season 1. It was, again, the start of an era, the start of something new. In an era of Battle Royale games, this was a fresh take, with building, with bases, with colorful graphics, and some cartoony characters. Season 1 started us off with just some basic loot, a map to run around with, and just some very fun mechanics. You know, you had rocket riding. There wasn't that many content updates throughout Season 1. There was the first Fortnitemares thing. It wasn't really focused on too much, but two big name skins were added, as well as the pumpkin launcher. That was it in terms of like weapon additions. There was the pumpkin launcher, but that was essentially like reskinned rocket launcher anyway. And it didn't play any different. It just had different sound effects and different coloration, and obviously a giant pumpkin instead of a rocket. But there's not much to write home about there. It was a solid start to the game, and a lot of the really iconic stuff that continued on throughout the chapter started here, like rocket riding became a meme and became a part of the meta. And that was pretty fun. Season 1 didn't have a battle pass at all. Instead, there was something called the Season Shop, which was essentially the item shop. But in order to actually purchase stuff in the shop, you had to get to a certain level with experience points. It was kind of weird, but again, I do know that some people think that this does count as a battle pass, so skins like the Renegade Raider shouldn't come back, not just because they are OG and whatever. I've made a video talking about all of that. Please go watch that if you want to know my thoughts on Renegade Raider and a bunch of other really OG stuff. But not only is it because it's super old and super rare and whatnot, but also because it was part of the Season Shop thing, which I guess was a pseudo battle pass. But honestly, I don't think so, especially since skins from that Season Shop have shown up again. It's essentially just a fancier item shop that had you locked behind an additional barrier until you got to an appropriate level to purchase whatever skin was in shop. It functioned kind of weirdly, but whatever. No battle pass, Season Shop. Again, not too much to say about it. It was just a fresh take on Battle Royale that was pretty fun and got things rolling. So, in terms of Season 1, I'm giving it an A. It's not the most spectacular opening to the game, but it definitely left a solid impression, enough to keep the game going. Now, Season 2. Season 2 is when things really picked up. Because the OG map, I'm going to just say now that the OG map added at the start of the game was kind of empty. You had plenty of POIs in the middle of the map. There were, at the start, there was Wailing Woods. At the time it was Wailing Woods before it became Weeping in Chapter 2. Wailing Woods, Lonely Lodge, Retail Row, Tomato Town, Anarchy Acres, Fatal Fields, Dusty Depot, Salty Springs, and Moisty Mire. Oh, and also, I think I mentioned Pleasant Park and Flush Factory and Greasy Grove. Sounds like a fair bit, but the distance between POIs at that time was kind of obscure. I'm going to go over to Fortnite GG because there is a map evolution thing that doesn't work. Wonderful. Well, give me just a second. I'll pull up a thing for wrong thing for the OG map. Pull up an image of that Fortnite OG map. That's incorrect. There it is. Alright. So here we are back here. We have here the OG... Oh, and Loot Lake. I forgot about Loot Lake. But look at this. Right? You had Salty Springs, Fatal Fields, all these POIs I mentioned. But over here, there is a solid consolidation of locations. All of the big name stuff at this point in time was right here. The left side of the map had 3 POIs, and they were very spaced out. Pleasant Park all the way up here, Greasy Grove all the way down here, and Flush Factory at the very bottom of the place. It was very spacious. Over here, there's still good distance between POIs, but you can walk to Fatal Fields really quickly from Moisty Mire. You can get to Salty Springs or Retail or Dusty Divot from or Depot from Retail Row. And these locations, you can get to them pretty quickly from one another. Whereas over here, if let's say Zone pushed you from Pleasant Park all the way down to the Greasy Grove area, you'd have a hike through pretty much nothing. There was, this side of the map was just bloody empty. If you landed on the western shore of the island, there wasn't much of anything for you. It was just this. That's all you had. It was just green. There was like a few sheds and small houses here or there. But it wasn't until you got to Pleasant Park or Retail or Greasy Grove that you had anything going on. As simple as that. There just wasn't much to write home about. But I think some of the biggest changes came, and some of the most monumental changes for the game came in Season 2. Because the map went from this to this one's kind of poor quality, but let's see if I can bring it up in a larger... Nope. Let's see if I can find a better image real quick. That would have been one. I guess we're on the wiki now. Okay, that's solid. That's solid. Okay. Season 2 added in a whole new section for the left side of the map. We had locations like Junk Junction, Haunted Hills, Snobby Shores, Shifty Shafts, and, of course, Tilted Towers being added into the game. And some smaller, unnamed locations like the motel got added in up here. Season 2 added in so many POIs and filled in the gaps of this side of the map. Oh yeah, the soccer field too. But there was just, again, a lot more going on over here. That was very much needed. That was needed very much so. Because again, you go back here, there's nothing. You go here, there's something. Of course, Tilted Towers became instant classic. Shifty was fun for me. That was one of my favorite POIs because of the fact that there were underground segments. There were... I just liked the mine feel of the place because it's obviously a mine shaft. I liked how that place looked aesthetically and gameplay-wise. It was cool. Now, these locations here, Junk Junction, Haunted Hills, and Snobby Shores, didn't get much love. There were a few people who dropped there, but these three locations kind of got shafted for most of the chapter. They were added and then not much of anything was done to them. Haunted Hills would eventually get like a giant castle thing on the mountain overlooking it in Season 6. And Snobby Shores would also get a Viking house, I think, in Season 5. And there were a couple like smaller unnamed location things added in some of the areas this-ish way. So you had something close-ish to Snobby, but there wasn't... Like, these locations were solid. I liked them. But they kind of got shafted by the larger community, for being honest. But again, these map changes were much needed because it gave you diversity on the map and gave you an option of more of an option of where to land because there was more to see and do over here. And I think that was very important. So back over to the tier list. Another thing that the season introduced were a bunch of new weapons. This is where Epic really picked up the pace on their game updates and content updates, where they added in a bunch of new toys to play with. We had the silenced pistol coming in purple and legendary variants, and at that point in time it was pretty OP. It could do some surprising damage and was pretty fun to use. Side note, a lot of weapons back in the day were far more busted than you'd think. You just mow through people if you got a gold scar. And not to mention the double pump. that was a whole debacle that was, oh boy, that was a situation. And I think it really created a crutch for a lot of players that when the double pump eventually got nerfed, that players were really salty about that because it was really just a crutch. All fights kind of came down to who could double pump, who couldn't, and just close range engagements. Back on track. There was the silenced pistol. There were also impulse grenades. The chug jug was added, and so was the minigun and a couple other items I'm probably forgetting. But I think one of the biggest additions was, I mentioned the chug jug, that's up there too, but also the mini shield. Because that really, really changed up the meta, because shield potions used to, for heals, at least for shields, use the big shields and occasionally slurp juices. Big pots were kind of rare. And again, they did 50 shields, so they did pretty good heals. But not there. Again, they were kind of rare, so not everybody had shield. Usually, if you found someone who survived a while, they had shield. But if in most early game fights, you'd find somebody, they just be having their regular health. When minis got added, they were initially kind of rare. But as time went on, they became more common, and it really changed up how you fought people, because more people would have that extra bit of health, which could let them tank some of your shots and then stand on their own. And again, it was easier to get 100 shields because minis would get you up to 50, and then you get a big pot, you're at 100. That was you could always get 100 shield in the game, whether it be through getting 2 big pots, or getting a big pot and some slurp juice or something like that. But that was kind of hard to do because both items were decently rare. But then minis were introduced, and then you could get 100 shields pretty easy. Or at least a lot easier. And additionally, back in the day, for the longest time throughout Chapter 1, minis were stackable to up to 10 potions. You could carry 10 minis with you. That was pretty good. So, yeah. That's most of Season... Oh, wait, the Battle Pass. Season 2 was the first season to introduce a Battle Pass, and it only had 70 tiers. I'm kind of upset with myself because I had gotten close to getting Black Knight in terms of like the free tiers and stuff. So if I would have actually bought the Battle Pass, I probably would have been able to get him. But I was dumb and didn't get the Battle Pass, so I didn't get Black Knight, even though it was pretty much there. I'm still a bit salty about that. So for that reason, Season 2 is getting an F. No. For all the reasons I've mentioned beforehand, Season 2 is getting an S+. It has done so much for the game, and has honestly been... It was honestly what the game really needed at the time. It changed up the game a lot, and in most ways for the better. In most, if not always, for the better. Moving on to Season 3. I have a lot of memories with this season. It was the first season I got the Battle Pass. It was also the first season that the game's storyline began to actually pick up. Because before that, people still will look at you weird when you say Fortnite storyline because it's not really the most talked about. In more recent seasons, it's been more obvious and more highlighted, but it's still kind of not really under wraps, but you have to do a little bit of digging for it. But back in the day, it was like virtually non-existent, but Season 3 was the start of the obvious stuff for the storyline. Gameplay-wise, it played very similar to Season 2. Not much changed. There were some graphical enhancements. Also, for some new weapons, there was the Desert Eagle, there was the Deagle, the hunting rifle, and also a new POI was added. There weren't many major map changes during Season 3. However, Lucky Landing was introduced at the far south tip of the island. Yep, there it is. The map looks a bit greener here too. But here's the Season 3 map, with Lucky Landing at the very bottom of it. That was the only major map change during this season. You just had Lucky Landing down there. Not too much to say about that. That was a solid POI and pretty fun. I liked it. But in terms of gameplay, not much changed. There were these new weapons to play around with, and Battle Pass and Battle Pass challenges were introduced. The Battle Pass had been extended to a full 100 tiers rather than 70 because Epic realized just how popular it got. So like, oh yeah, let's just make some more Battle Pass tiers. There were also Backlinks were introduced for the first time during Season 3. Because before that, a lot of the accessories for skins were built into the skin. So, for the first time, you could have, in Season 3, backblings put on your character. So stuff like the Cuddle Team Leader's bow became a backbling that you could put on other characters. And things of that nature. And that was pretty cool for customization options. Additionally, contrails were added to the game, so when you jumped out the bus, you had a cool trail following you as you skydived your way down. So a couple new, I wouldn't say features, but a couple different like cosmetic items were introduced that stuck around for the rest of the Fortnite's history. But it was a fun season. I enjoyed it a lot. That was the first time I really took the game seriously enough to actually buy the Battle Pass and start, playing through that. And then, like I mentioned earlier, towards the end of the season, that's when the storyline stuff really picked up, or at least began to pick up. Because towards the end of the season, there was, towards the midpoint, you could look up in the sky and see what looked to be like a comet in the far distance. And then gradually, as the weeks progressed, that comet got closer and closer and closer to the island, eventually being revealed to be a giant meteorite, or asteroid, or whatever you call them. Space rock of some sort that can actually crash land instead of melt in the atmosphere. And everyone thought that Toto was going to get nuked, which it didn't. However, as the season drew closer and closer to an end, smaller meteorites would start falling out of the sky, which could land on people's builds if they landed on a player, do some damage to them, and just overall just wreaked havoc as each match would draw closer to its end. Usually the meteors would start falling in one of the latter few zones, so like you'd be in the last couple circles, and then suddenly you'd be hit by an asteroid or something like that. It was kind of hectic. Also, TVs around the map went from either having like static playing or nothing at all to having emergency alert signals broadcasting with a heads up that something's about to happen, that there's been a giant space rock spotted and it's about to hit the island. And again, that whole season was pretty fun. It was when I started taking the game seriously, bought the Battle Pass, started trying to get good at it. Building was starting to pick up as well. Usually you'd see people just building giant like stone towers and things on tops of hills to look out and snipe people. But there were also some like very bare bones, very basic build fights starting. Like some of the ones that you'd look at now and be like, oh, let's look at some of the sweatier players and look back at this. Like, well, it's obviously not as sweaty as it is now, but that is a recognizable build fight. So that's a thing. Season 3, really fun for me. Gameplay-wise, didn't change up too much from Season 2. In terms of map changes, their Lucky Landing was added, that's it. Not much else to say about you, but I really enjoyed it, personally. So it's getting an S tier. Next up, Season 4. Season 4 was probably one of the seasons I was the most hyped for. And also a season I really beat myself up about now. Because I did not complete the Battle Pass for that season, and it was really good. And I got, once again, very close to getting done with it, but either ran out of time or stopped or something somewhere through it. So I didn't get Omega. I didn't get Tier 100. I feel really stupid about that, but whatever. I'm not salty at all. But I remember before the season dropped, or the day that the season would drop, I remember being at school. I was talking to some friends about it. That was when Fortnite was just not, I wouldn't say peak popularity because I don't think it hit that yet. But it was really becoming the major cultural phenomenon that it's been known as during this time. And Season 4 was really hyped up, and for bloody good reason. I remember being at school, and I had a friend who was playing it on his phone and came over to me when I was doing, at the time, I did a lunch table type thing where I'd recruit another student to help me hand out snacks and stuff. I remember this friend walked over with his phone. He's like, "Hey, check out some of the new map stuff." But I really wanted to avoid spoilers that entire day, so both my other friend and I were like, no, please don't spoil it. I was so hyped up to see what the new map changes would be, what the new season would look like. There was speculation when you heard that it was going to be an asteroid hitting the map. If there were going to be space rock materials added to the game, it was going to be a different map type. There wasn't, but it was still fun to speculate and theorize. And Season 4 brought about a lot of those. So, what actually happened during Season 4? Well, it was one of those seasons where the map really went crazy. The asteroid didn't hit Tilted Towers, I can English, I swear. Instead, it hit Dusty Depot, creating Dusty Divot, annihilating half of the warehouses and also the original factories. Let's pop back over to the map that we were looking at earlier. Here's Season 3. Say hello to Season 4. You had this giant crater in the middle of the map. You also had risky reels added in the top corner. Moisty Mire got a movie set. And there were also a few new changes around the map as well. Some smaller unnamed locations. Also, additional craters were added to an area close to Pleasant Park, close to Fatal Fields, in Risky Reels, in the prison, and a couple other places like the original racetrack. And yeah, they were all over the place. I think Tilted also got hit, not severely, but that one building that just kept getting screwed over got hit by a meteor. But obviously, Dusty Divot was the big focal point. That became one of my favorite POIs throughout the rest of the chapter. I loved Dusty Divot. I cannot speak. I swear I could speak. But that became a really big deal. Remember, the original Dusty Divot was an absolute bloody free-for-all. It was wide open spaces. It was just, if you got a gun first, everyone else was screwed because there was a limited amount of loot pool in the little research facility established in the middle of the crater. When you got out into the middle of the crater, I've been watching back older Fortnite videos of OG Dusty Divot when it was first added in, and it was just no man's land, but you got to see just truly how large this crater was. And there was just a massive gap of just nothingness outside of the complex. There was closer to the ruined warehouses. There were knocked over crates and stuff you could hide behind or inside. But in terms of cover, you had no cover. There were broken vehicles towards Salty Springs, and there was the occasional hunk of metal here or there. But there wasn't much. So if someone was inside the complex and someone was outside of the complex walking around in that open field, in that open crater, they were easy pickings. It was just an absolute madhouse. For the first couple days, Dusty Divot was far more populous than Tilted, which with most of the lobby there, you'd have some insane fights at the start. You could rack up 5 or 6 kills within the first few moments of the match because of just how many people got there, and if you got a gun first, you were lethal. To counter that, you also had hop rocks, both in Dusty Divot and in the smaller craters found elsewhere, which they were one of the first major interactable items they could pick up and use just in the world, which gave you a gravity jump, which would make you immune to fall damage. You got a jump boost, you could jump over a lot. And if you built staircases while you were jumping up the staircases, you could jump off some insanely high heights and land some pretty cool trick shots. Those were pretty fun. Again, Risky Reels was also added too, and that was another major loot spot. There was a lot of chests, a lot of ammo boxes, and the game made sure to monopolize on that by making sure that every few days or so there would be a new challenge to open ammo boxes or chests at Risky Reels, which meant that the entire lobby would drop there to complete those challenges. And there was like 6 or 7 chests in Risky Reels, so you normally end up either getting lucky. If you got lucky and got all of them, good for you. If not, then you'd get like some obscure number and have to keep dropping there until you got it. But again, with the entire lobby there, it was also just another really hectic fight in really close quarters, because unlike in Dusty Divot, there was no man's land of hop rocks to get you out of there. There were some hop rocks in the center of it, but to get to them, you have to fight your way through the other bajillion people who showed up. It was some good hectic fun at the very start and during those challenge periods. But Risky Reels was another solid, iconic location added that really stuck around and has kind of become a staple as well, because it was added in Chapter 2, just not as a named location. And then in Chapter 3, Rocky Reels is obviously inspired by it and is desert-themed, but I'll get to that later. But Season 4 had a lot of crazy map changes, and outside of the couple named locations added, there was also a bunch of unnamed places added. There was a hidden bunker added underneath one of the houses in Salty Springs. There was also a new mansion added close to Lonely Lodge, where a lot of people were like, oh, that's John Wick's house, that's his mansion. There was no confirmation of that, but whatever. But underneath the house was another larger underground facility. You could either get there by finding the basement in the mansion itself, by exploring the place, or if you got daring, you could glide off the side of the map and then glide into like a little hangar built into the cliff underneath the mansion. So you could explore the location that way. That was pretty cool. But probably the biggest secret facility they added was on a mountain overlooking Snobby Shores. Because this one, there was like the big theme of Season 4 was a superhero fight with actual OCs instead of the Marvel collab that they did a chapter later, but whatever. There was the movie set in Moisty Mire hints that the superhero plot was an actual in-canon movie. And to add on to the movie, there was a secret base, a secret villain lair added to a mountain to be the villain, like the villain lair for that movie. Again, the plot for that is kind of all over the place. I don't know if it was, these are like, I'm pretty sure it's an actual, the consistency seems to be it's an actual in-game movie. But that was the thing. And there was also a prop rocket in that facility that would have some huge implications for the game story. But more on that in a little bit. These locations were pretty fun. They were decently hidden too. So you'd stumble upon them at random and be surprised when you're like, oh my gosh, there's a secret facility here. And that was cool. That was really cool. And unique and fun and all that jazz. Season 4 was also when they did the collab with Marvel to do the Thanos versus the world thing for Infinity War. That was fun. What else did they do? And then there was the first ever live event. The first major beat for the story was when the Visitor showed up and launched his rocket into the air, flew around, a part of it dropped in Anarchy Acres, and then everyone thought the Toto was going to get nuked. It didn't. Big surprise. Before the rocket flew into the air and created a giant rift in space-time continuum. That was really cool. That was the moment where, like, Fortnite was already starting to make a name for itself, but it was this live event that truly separated Fortnite from other battle royales because of its story and these crazy, crazy scripted events that would just happen. And everyone loved them. They were really cool and really creative. And overall, that was just a major moment for the game. Season 4 also had the first ever secret skin accompanying the Battle Pass, so after a period of time, you could start doing challenges, you'd unlock special loading screens that would give you hints of where the next challenge thing was. But if you did all of them, you'd get a secret skin. You'd get the Visitor. I didn't do that. I was dumb. Another reason why I beat myself up. For a lot of these seasons, I didn't do the secret skin challenges, meaning I didn't get a single one of the OG secret skins. Arg. But in any case, Season 4 was another spectacular season that did a lot for the game, and for that reason, and for all of the reasons I mentioned over the past few minutes, Season 4 is getting an S+ tier from me. Season 5, in my opinion, lived up to the hype that Season 4 left behind. There's a lot of story beats throughout there. There were some really cool, like, Easter eggs added in with the rifts were actually like rifting in stuff from other dimensions, including our own. So stuff like the Easter Island Moi were scattered across the map. There was a Viking village added on top of one of the mountains. And obviously the biggest change was what happened over here. So here's Season 5. We had the Viking village overlooking Snobby Shores. So you had the secret base over here still. And then you had the Viking village. Unnamed POI, but still really cool and became really iconic. But then there was the desert biome. Also Lazy Links. But the desert biome ate up the racetrack. It added in a little cowboy town back here. I can't really point to it with my mouse without it causing some issues. But down closer to the far south area of the desert was a cowboy town. There was also a little gift shop area close to a gas station with some giant dinosaurs. And it was the gas station, and on the very end there was this cool bridge location with a lot of loot that bridged the gap between the green section of the map and the desert. This is really cool. Map change here, adding an entirely new biome, was spectacular. The drum gun was added in late Season 4, but it got buffed again. So did every other SMG, because Season 5 was known for its spray meta. Additionally, build fights became far sweatier. And the game really started to pick up the pace, and people were actually starting to get good. So getting a victory royale was far harder. But again, there was definitely a skill gap growing. There was a lot going on. The Battle Pass also introduced toys. Lazy Links had a golf course on it. Where like the POI itself was fairly small and condensed, but there was a large area of no man's land. They finally got rid of the second unneeded farm location. They got rid of Anarchy Acres to replace it with Lazy Links. Hallelujah. There was no need for Anarchy Acres to exist as long as it did. But Lazy Links, you could actually use your toys there. That sounds weird. But you could actually play golf with the golf balls, and there would be announcements advertising, if you got a hole-in-one or how far away you landed your golf ball. It was a lot of fun with just the random stuff you could do outside of just spray at people with the SMGs, because the SMGs were crazy. The compact SMG was also added in the game. impulse grenades, or not impulse grenades, shockwave grenades were added, I think, during this time. The grappler and heavy sniper were also introduced. That was fun. One of the other crazy things that I really enjoyed during this season were the rifts, where all across the map you would have these rifts that you could walk into. It would throw you in the sky, and then you get a chance to glide around for a bit. Those are cool. It was a great mobility item, great mobility thing to have. They were all over the place. There was a lot of them in the desert, but there were also a few of them scattered around. Tomato Town still existed for a bit. A little bit north of Tomato Town was one of the Easter Island heads. It had a couple rifts around that. There was another one close to Dusty. There was another head close to Dusty Divot with more rifts. The Durburger had been rifted away from Greasy Grove, and instead had been put on top of a hill close to Pleasant Park with a couple rifts next to it and drift graffiti on it. There was just a lot going on. Another really cool thing they did was Tomato Temple, another one of my favorite POIs, was added in over time. Tomato Head's one of my favorite skins, and they gave him a crown variant. Really cool. But one of my favorite changes they did over time was that they made the map feel alive during this season. Gradually, as Season 4 came to a close, Dusty Divot became more green. But by Season 5, that was when Dusty Divot really took the green shape that it had for the rest of its existence. Trees were everywhere. It became a sort of forest. There were a few ponds here or there. The facility became overrun with vines and stuff. It really gave me some Fallout New Vegas vibes with both the desert and then the Vault 22-esque feel of the improved Dusty Divot. So the Hop Rocks are gone, unfortunately. There were none of them left. You might have been able to, towards the start of the season, find a couple of them in trucks and on some of the roads leaving the locations where they were. Some of the craters have been filled in at Risky Reels and close to Pleasant Park and stuff. There's some trucks there, and maybe you might have been able to find some Hop Rocks there, but I think they were all gotten rid of by the start of Season 5. But there's a lot going on with that. The map changes were solid. The desert biome was one of my favorite additions they added to the game. There's a lot to see and do. And so personally, I think Season 5 was a lot of fun. But more importantly than just how fun and cool the map changes were, the cube was introduced. That was another big step for the story. The cube was added. It rolled around the map. It started out... I'm gonna go back to the map again. It started out... It's kind of hard to see. But on one of these hills near Paradise Palms, I think it was this one right there. The one just by this oasis. The cube spawned in on top of that mountain. The giant rift in the sky closed up after it barfed out the cube on that hill. And then for the next few weeks, the cube rolled its way around the map, leaving runes everywhere. There was one left here-ish. It rolled its way through Tilted, crushed that building again, and left just runes all over the place. As it was making the runes, there was a weird no-gravity thing going on around it. If you shot it, it would shoot you. It had its own attitude. Before eventually getting up to Loot Lake, rolling into the lake, turning it purple, making it bouncy, and then vanishing. No one knew what was about to happen next, but it became far, far crazier. But Season 5, I'm also going to give it an S+ tier. I know it's somewhat controversial, but I really enjoyed it. I think Season 5, again, was another one of those major seasons for the map, for the game, and deserves the position I put it at. Now, Season 6 was Far more controversial. This was the Halloween season. The Battle Pass, I completed both Battle Passes for Season 5 and 6 and 7. So I didn't repeat the same mistake I did for 4 with those. But Season 6, it existed. For me, I enjoyed it personally, but it's gotten a lot of flack from people for understandable reasons. The cube came back and lifted the island in the center of Loot Lake up into the air and flew that around in circles for a while, visiting some of the ruins it left behind here in Season 5. I'm going to go ahead and hop back over here for a moment. So there's a lot of these ruins and corrupted zones around the map. There weren't any major map changes other than the corrupted zones and the floating island moving its way around. As it would fly around, it would, you could fly up on top of the island. You can use the tornado as a cool way to rotate. Like if you're coming from back in this area, you could hitch a ride off of the Loot Lake island, or if it was like in these other areas, you could hop on that and then coast. But eventually there was the butterfly event. But before that, the island made it back to the initial vortex before splitting, before breaking, and then the cube made a bunch of fragments around the place, spawning in zombies. That was very controversial. That was a very, very controversial addition. I personally didn't mind the zombies. They're kind of fun to deal with for me, personally. But I understand people's frustration. So, again, it was a solid battle pass. The Fortnite thing, I didn't do the challenges for that, so I didn't get the glider. I didn't... They also introduced pets in the battle pass. That was cool. They didn't do much of that afterwards, though. I kind of forgot that existed. Same with toys. But, yeah, that's mostly Season 6 summed up. It kind of just happened. I personally had fun with it, but again, it was pretty controversial. But it's not the best season they've ever done, but I'm going to give it, like, an A. It was okay. But folks, I'm going to actually leave this here. This is a solid place to stop for the moment. I'm going to pick this up again over the next few days. I will come back again when my voice is less shot, and we'll give this a try. It is getting late in the evening, and I want to preserve some of my voice for potentially making a video. And as such, I'm going to go ahead and stop this lecture here. I will pop back in at some point in the next few days to actively make a part 2 to this. So stay tuned for that, and I will be back with part 2 to this stream at another point. Thanks for tuning in, folks, and as always, Max